Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
What are your big takeaways from the experience of having teachers be the ones who decide what the PD is going to be, what the learning is, and the big core beliefs?
It built the confidence in our teachers to be able to sustain our quality instruction. And I think for not just our young teachers or our teachers new to the profession, it really helped all of our teachers kind of on this journey.
I think it extended also that whole concept of lifelong learning and that whole adult learning piece. I think the teachers learned so much from each other through this process, and as a result, they grew, and their growth stimulated student growth. And so that was very exciting.
Welcome back to the Making Schools Work podcast. I'm Daniel Rock, and I'm joined today by Senior Leadership Coach Donn Kirkwood. Hey, Donn, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon.
So, Donn, today we are going to talk with a pace setter school called Westside High School. What's different about this school and their PD design from other schools is that an internal team of teachers comes together, does a book study, and then throughout the year, they plan a PD together and how those strategies look, what they are, and then they work with their PLCs to deliver that information. And then this team helped identify core beliefs for the school, and they identified 6 common strategies they call the Westside 6. Is that accurate? You've worked with this school for several years now. Tell me a little bit about the work you've been doing with them and what makes them such a pace setter.
Yeah, that's most definitely accurate. The first year, we really wanted to build that leadership within this team. So whatever the training that we did with developing those leaders, we gave them an opportunity to actually put it in practice the following month. So they were able to take a lot of what we were doing, the book studies, to have them actually start leading those conversations around visible learning. And then, of course, be able to set up some model classrooms where teachers can buy and see it. They also went out to classrooms, visited to give those teachers some feedback. But yeah, that first year was like we were trying to get those teachers the opportunity to really become confident in becoming that key leader within the school with their peers. So looking at multiple opportunities, not just leading or co-leading professional development, but really planning around what can we do to really improve the success of the students within the school.
Well, I want to bring the principal of Westside High School, Kory Roberts, and the MTSS specialist, Taria McIntosh. And these are the 2 principal people who helped lead and create the conditions for this to be successful. Welcome, Kory and Taria. How are you?
Going
Hi.
great.
Doing great.
Tell us your background and your experiences in education leading to being the principal of Westside High School.
Okay, sure. I've been a principal for a little bit over 20 years, and I've had the privilege of working at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So I was very versed at professional development and what it looks like at all levels. It's a little different at the high school level, I would say, because sometimes high school teachers are experts in their areas and don't always understand how professional development really helps them grow. So I was really pleased with Donn and Taria and how they brought the high school teachers together across contents to make sure we were improving instruction.
Taria, tell us a bit about your background.
Like Mr. Roberts, I also have worked at all 3 levels, and I have done a little bit of everything. I've been also a building level principal, assistant principal, instructional specialist, and literacy coach. Most of my experience is instructional leadership. And so what I'm doing right now with teacher leadership and working with teachers is my passion.
Okay. when you're in education and you're a teacher, it can sometimes feel as if I'm going to be a teacher forever. And I love teaching, and there's other opportunities that I want, right? I mean, I moved from being a teacher to an instructional coach, and that was one of the best changes I ever made. I love teaching, but I also really enjoy working with adults. And what I'm hearing happened here is you help people think about their role as a teacher as somebody who's not just teaching kids, but teaching their colleagues, right? And that's part of the experience of being a teacher, is like exploring with your colleagues what works and what happens in the classroom. I bet you that was exciting for a lot of people to see.
Yes, it really was. Anytime you can get teachers talking about the work and them being excited about it, because I don't know in the natural school day how many opportunities our teachers get to just talk school and talk strategy and not get caught up in going to duty and grading papers, but just trying to find that structured time where they could actually relax and just talk school.
You know, I'm thinking about, I spoke with your teachers recently, and you all gave them time once a month, half a day, the VLL team, to dig into these strategies, talk about their book study, reflect on how it would work in their classroom, and plan how we're going to teach. And that's got to be, for some teachers, some leaders, like, that's hard to build that time. You have to get, substitutes. You have to get coverage. Was that a challenge? And like, what are your thoughts on building that time? And like, how do you know it's worth it to do it?
I'm going to turn that one over to Ms. McIntosh, and simply because she was the person working directly with the teachers that had to make me understand exactly how much time the teachers needed, how much, and we had to provide lunch for them and coverage. So she was instrumental. I wanted to ask her to kind of comment on that.
First of all, I want to say that it was so tremendous, and I so much appreciate Mr. Roberts immediately saying yes to everything. You know, he was very gracious in wanting the teachers to have that time to plan. He wanted them to have as much time as they needed for study. He wanted Donn and me to have access. He wanted them to have the materials that was necessary, and he wanted them to be fed and relaxed. And that was important because we needed that atmosphere for teachers to feel comfortable with the learning. And they felt safe there with Donn and me. They felt comfortable. They look forward to that time. And I think that that's important. I think it's important that when you're in that learning space, that you feel safe with who you're with, that you feel comfortable. And it began to feel like something that they look forward to every month. And I think a lot of that was because of the routine that they were in. The substitutes were already ordered by the assistant principal, Ms. Penson. She knew the dates ahead of time, and she secured the subs. Mr. Roberts had already set up his bookkeeper and me with the relationship. I sent all of the names to her, and she sent me the forms so that I could get the orders from everyone prior to that meeting so that I could get everybody's lunch order. So everybody got what they wanted for lunch. Yeah. So they got exactly what they needed. And she made sure that lunch was there in a timely manner. So it was a seamless kind of thing. And that so I really appreciate that. And I know that the teachers appreciated that as well.
And then, okay, here's my other, now I'm putting myself in the mind of one of these teacher leaders. And I'm being told, you're a teacher leader, congratulations, that you're going to be responsible for teaching your colleagues how to do a variety of strategies. And some of my colleagues may not be as receptive as I am, right? I'm here because I'm a teacher leader. Mrs. Johnson may be, someone who likes to do the way Miss Johnson does and isn't that open to things. So I guess I'm wondering, like, how do you prepare somebody who's not a professional like Donn or you, Tara, to deliver and to feel confident enough to be, to one, learn the content on the one hand, but then be able to come in and like deliver it with confidence and not, and to not feel like they're wasting their colleagues' time. I'm just wondering how you prepare them for that successfully.
Well, I think that's twofold. I think that throughout that first year and even at the beginning, I think they saw that modeled with Donn presenting, coming in, as an outsider and dealing with a bit of resistance, a bit of questioning. They saw how he was able to turn that around into something positive. So they watched him. They watched, me and our API be able to do PLCs because they're not always necessarily agreeable when we're doing things. And so they were able to see models with that. So I think that helped out as well. And we were fortunate as those folks that were asked to be a part of the VLL team are very well respected teachers and they're leaders themselves. And so they're very held in very high regard. And so they're very respected by their colleagues. So I think on top of looking at leadership as a model and being very well respected themselves, I think that they were very prepared for different obstacles that came their way.
So Donn, she said that you did a great job modeling and preparing them. I have no doubt about that. Donn and I have worked together for going on 11 years now, traveled the country doing literacy and all kinds of great stuff. So I'm wondering, so Donn, you're working with these teachers. What are the most important, facilitation skills, presentation, or just what did you want them to think about as a teacher leader, as a facilitator? What were the things you wanted them to bring into that world?
Well, like we always say, once we get up in front of a group and we're doing training, we don't want it to be sit and get. So we took that whole entire belief. And, when we first started out, that first chapter, that book study we were doing was all about relationships and, expectations and really looking at what literacy is, why it's important to challenge students. But what really happened organically is when that first meeting, we would have just the teacher leaders and we used save the last word for me. So each teacher leader will give a quote that they thought was powerful. And then everyone had a chance to respond to that quote, which created a really rich conversation. But what was so beneficial is that they had that conversation on that chapter. And then that next month, when we did that same chapter with the rest of the faculty, and, they would rotate in through each block, they were able to really see their peers and really make the connection between their conversation as leaders and then that conversation that was happening with those teachers in each of the block. I think really preparing them and having those conversations and really working through those conversations in a safe place, like Taria was saying, that there was a lot of trust, there was a lot of respect, and we had optimism. Like we wanted them to be open. Yeah, sometimes we're like, okay, where is this conversation going? But at the same time, we were like, okay, we value that because even when we were doing it with the teacher leaders, it really opened up, okay, this is what they're thinking, which then really allowed Taria and I to really get deeper into our planning. So, okay, this is how they see this. But the most beautiful thing about it it's like sometimes they had those common misconceptions, even though the strategy is not really effective, like lecturing per se. And you might have seen at the beginning of the first year, they're trying to protect it. No, it's really, but then at the end of the year, they're like, no, you should never lecture. Like this has a negative effect. So you actually see the transformation, but at the same time, we never let those teacher leaders get in front of the teachers without that preparation, those conversations, really listening to each other so that we really we felt prepared and confident forward. So we had the conversation. Oh, we might see some resistance on this. So instead of just saying, oh, there might be resistance, we started talking about, okay, how can we make it relevant to this group, let's say CTE teachers that might not see this strategy being beneficial. And that group was like, okay, this is not going to work for CTE teachers, so we shouldn't even put it in front of our teachers. So they were very intentional with always keeping their teams in mind, the teachers that they're working with within their departments.
I noticed that one of the roles of this team was to create core beliefs, and then also a Westside 6, right? So these are like school-wide beliefs that we have. Where did that come from? That idea of having core beliefs and writing them down? I'm curious.
It had to be Taria and Donn.
It had to be Taria and Donn. Do you guys remember how that came about?
I knew we needed something to help with our school culture, drive our professional development. And I kind of just leaned to the experts on how we got there. Like that was my overall big arching thing. And I just kind of turned them loose to do what they do. Again, they're the experts. So a lot of times I got out of the way and let the experts, I will kind of give my input and just kind of let them go with it.
So Tara, can you tell me about like why that came about?
Well, Donn definitely was the spearhead with that core belief system. I was fortunate enough that I was able to work with Donn in another location in our district, actually our feeder middle school, with beginning this process too about core beliefs. And I will say that I definitely understand and agree totally with the premise of that, is that before, you begin any journey together, is that you have to have a common place that everybody begins. That you've got to have a place where you all believe something so that you can move forward toward a common goal. And so there were things that we all needed to fundamentally believe about children, believe about learning before we could move forward. And so stimulating that conversation among the faculty and digging deep and really forcing them to talk and speak about those things was very beneficial for both groups of teachers. And he constantly would come back to those core beliefs. Hey, look, now we said that we believe that all children can learn. We believe that all students should have high rigor. We should have high rigor and we should have high expectations for all students. So it was important different points of the year to go back and relate to those core beliefs. So establishing those was very important. And I think that was key. And I appreciate that Donn did that for us.
It seems to me as a teacher, if I come to a school and the school's, or the principal or the district says, these are our beliefs. This is what, X district believes. It can feel very bureaucratic and like somebody made this in an office down the street, maybe they ChatGPT'd it or Googled create 6 core beliefs for my school. And it's not personal to me. Like I didn't have anything to do with it. It was just given to me. Whereas this was part of the BLL team's charge, is to come up with their core beliefs, and not just from scratch, but from like their own, from the research, right? They were using the book studies that they were doing, and which I believe was Visible Learning for Literacy and Teacher Clarity were the two of the core texts that were used. But you have professional teachers who've done research and reading, and then the team came together and created these. Was it a difficult process? Was there a lot of argument and tearing of clothing, like of just like anger, rending of clothes, where they're just like angry at each other, or was it pleasant and easy and done in 10 minutes? Like, tell me a little bit about the process.
I honestly will have to say it took several workshops to get to where we were with the core beliefs, and to kind of talk about, where did it originate from? It was another school in South Carolina. I had a principal walk in and said, Donn, what would my teachers need to believe for this school to be successful? And that was Dr. Hagerty. And him and I ended up publishing a paper with SCASA, which is the leadership conference in South Carolina. But when we were doing the book study, there was one chapter that was all around those beliefs. And so once we finished it, we kind of revisited this and said, okay, what would it take for our school? What would we have to believe to really have an impact and influence on the success of our students? Taria and I first started out like, how are we going to present this? Do we just give what the book says? But at the same time, we were like, hey, we can't just have them copy the book, because then it's the books, it's not theirs. So we actually gave them a whole bunch of different formats, different beliefs. We set it all up in a Google document, and they kind of just went through, they revised it, but then we kind of we just let it sit and simmer for a month. And then we came back and we really did finalize it, but we said, we need everyone's feedback. So we kind of created like a gallery walk with each of the beliefs. And then each teacher came and they responded, like, what did they think? What would they add? And then based on all that feedback, we just kind of combined it all together to have a voice. And once we had those beliefs, then we started setting those SMART goals on those beliefs. But I mean, that was almost 3 months. That was like the last 3 months after we finished the book study the first year, is really getting what does the school believe. But at the same time, I'm working with Kory and Taria to make sure, we're going somewhere that doesn't align with where their mission and vision is. So I would say it was probably one of the more complex. Like, there was a lot of thought and a lot of discussion in that development.
Can I talk about the last one?
Please.
I want to talk about the very last one. It's interesting. The last one, it was very pivotal because it was added because it was a sudden aha for the group. Because as they went through and they talked about that, they felt like that learning intentions, needed to be clear and communicated to students. They felt like that students should have high rigor. They went through all of these things with the core beliefs. And then at the very end, they were done and we were finished. I think we had 5. And then they said, wait a minute. We're done with it. The list is done. And they said, but you know what? There's one that we forgot. And then they tack on there at the end that they felt, and I thought this was so powerful. They said that they felt it was important that it was important to continue to have a culture that fostered adult learning, continuous learning. And I thought adding that at the very end was just awesome. And I don't remember who started that conversation. Perhaps one of the teachers that you will end up interviewing later for a podcast. I think it may have originated with her, but I thought that it was so great that they came up with feeling like it was important to add. I think that was, I thought that was wonderful.
It validates the work you're doing. It validates the work that they're doing. And it gets to the heart, to me, of what teaching is. I mean, to me, as I see a teacher as first and foremost as a learner, where you have to approach it from the perspective of I'm a learner and I'm bringing in other people to learn with me. And I've just learned a lot more before they have. And so I'm going to teach them what I've learned, but I'm also going to keep learning, because that's the only way to be a great teacher. In fact, teaching is an act of learning for me. That's what I love about teaching. It's like, oh boy, I get to learn this in depth now because I get to teach it even deeper than I knew it before.
I think the one belief that really came out in all of our conversations that third one was it needed to be a proven research strategy. All of a sudden, like there was this huge shift from, okay, I'm just going to take this from the teaching channel, or I'm going to just take this from, a website. This team, they became the filter. Okay, where's the research behind the strategy? How is it proven? Really seeing not only them being beliefs, but really taking ownership and really controlling the conversation. I mean, even from the very first one, which clear learning intentions, moving to what is success criteria. Yeah. Where's your rubric? I mean, they were huge advocates for these beliefs. I mean, progress monitoring and feedback. Okay, your student is not progressing. What are you doing to close this gap? What type of feedback are you giving to your students? So these beliefs like really became the center of all of our conversations.
Donn was talking about feedback, and he's right. But I love that when they added some things to feedback, that it must be specific and timely, because sometimes we wait too long to give kids feedback. And so they were very adamant about that feedback needed to be timely feedback.
Yeah. I spoke with Shalita, one of your teachers on the VLL team, and she was telling me how those kids come up to her the next day and say, how'd I do? Because they know now they're going to get that feedback the next day. And there's one thing we know about feedback is the longer you wait, the less effective it is.
Right.
That's why video games are the best learning tool, because the immediate, either you play and you die in the game and you try again. Okay. You play, you die in the game, you try again. You play, you die in the game, you try again. You immediately learn, like, don't go down that alley because that's where the robots are. So I once heard someone say with feedback, that day, next day, or don't bother. Now that's a little extreme. I don't know if that's exactly right. But it's close. It gets the right idea. Tara and Donn, we're going to zoom in a little bit into those half days. So we've got a group of teacher leaders. They've got a book study. They've got this book, either what for year one was Visible Learning Full Literacy. Year two was Teacher Clarity Playbook. So I assume they've read their chapters, and now they're with you two. What are we doing for a half day? What does that day look like? Give me some of the details about how you facilitated that day. So by the end of it, they, one, understand and have discussed the strategy, and two, are able to communicate it and talk about it to the various audiences. Like, what are some of the ways that you have organized those half days? I know the two of you collaborated deeply to plan. Like, you didn't just throw them in there and say, don't come out until you're ready. You guys planned together deeply. Can you talk a little bit about how you tried to structure that time? Tara, you go for it.
I was about to say, Donn, you want to take Well, Donn and I did a lot of pre-planning. We did a lot virtually. We planned, and we used a lot of the days, like when he was here, after he had worked with the teachers, we would spend the rest of the time planning here. So we spent a lot of time together talking about next time and what we would do. So it was a lot of pre-planning. And Donn would have the agenda set, based on our pre-plan. He had the chapter set about what he wanted to cover with the teachers, and he would present the staff development. I mean, he would do the presentation with us with the BLL team, and he would present it in his own way using best practice strategies, those high effect size strategies that are mentioned in the Visible Learning book. And he would definitely highlight the Westside 6 in that presentation. And, he would definitely involve discourse in those strategies, because one of the things that he stressed to the teachers, and especially the BLL team, is how important talk is with students. The students need to talk to each other. They need to talk to the teacher. And so that really cements learning is, that talk. And so he would definitely model that with the teachers. And so that's what he would do during that time. And then once they learned the material, then we would go into the second phase of, okay, I've immersed you in the experience. You know the content. Now let's turn and let's talk about how would you present this to your colleagues? And that's where the turn would come. And then they would talk about, and, he would lead and I co-lead with him that discussion with helping them plan how they would lead the staff development the next day on how they would present it to their peers.
I want to point out something that I just think is so important, though. You could have made the decision, Kory and Tara, we're paying Donn. He's coming in to coach our teachers. I'm going to stand in the back of the room, and afterwards I'll tell him what I liked and what I didn't like. Or, I trust they'll all do a great job. Let me know how it goes, right? I work with a lot of administrators sometimes, and it's like, oh, the teacher said this, the teacher said that. What I'm hearing is, Tara, no, you rolled up your sleeves and you said, we are going to do this together. Right? You're using Donn's experiences, his knowledge, his just, expertise, but you are the person at the school who's there every day. And you're the person who can follow up and have those conversations and is in the trenches with the teachers in terms of working with kids, working with parents. So you doing it with him seems like a critical component to this being successful. Am I right in thinking that? Donn, what do you think? Yes, Kory, tell me. Why was that so important, Mr. Roberts?
Because even throughout the first year, one of the concerns that the teachers had, they wanted to make sure the administrators were in the journey with them, not just me, all of my assistant principals. So we had to tell them that we were in our own personal book study, but Tara and Donn, their interactions and the way they work so well together. And I think you really hit on it, that Donn was going to get on the plane at some point and fly off somewhere else. And was going to be left here with Westside High School to make sure everything worked right. And again, it's a lot easier sometimes when you pay somebody from the outside to come in because it's that expectation. But I think them two working in our BLL, in our entire faculty, seeing how well they work together, it kept the continuity from month to month. I think that's why they were excited about the monthly PD. And sometimes for high school teachers, they do a lot and it's a long day, but to have that excitement, it really goes back to Tara and Donn and their preparation.
Yeah. So while we're talking that follow-up, so Tara being part of it allowed her to follow up. Can you talk a little bit about now afterwards, like in between the months? So you're doing these PDs every month, but in between that, they're using the strategy. And so there's two things I would imagine. One is feedback to help them get better. And the second is celebration of us as a school, digging into these things and getting better. Mr. Roberts, can you talk a little bit about how you tried to celebrate and encourage and build momentum in between those visits?
I think it was us really having those small celebrations as administrators, us going into classrooms, seeing the strategies, us bragging in our newsletters about the teachers, and it's spreading that joy around. Not just with the BLL team, but when we saw their colleagues working extremely hard, when we saw it in the lesson plans, the first year we had stickers that we would put, outside of the classroom to say visible learning has been in this classroom. Oh. We saw from one semester to the next semester, some really young teachers really grow just because I think they had the instructional strategies and some things in their tool belt to help with that. So we had a great year across the board, but academically being able to encourage our young teachers and our veteran teachers. And probably another thing that happened that was a celebration we had some young teachers really embrace everything. And I'm not talking about high school teachers, but some of our young teachers didn't have any bad hats. Like they were just like sponges, and they wanted this knowledge and information, and they really wanted to make a difference. Because now in education, we have a lot of teachers that don't take that traditional path of education that I took. So I had the, practicals and the student teaching, and now we're in a different ball game in education. So having somebody work directly with you because you're actually doing the job as a student, I think I went to the practicums. I tried to pay attention, but if I would have had this kind of support when I first started teaching, I would have been a monster. Because I wanted that. I wanted that knowledge.
Yeah.
Nobody was giving it to me though. So this setting takes us all back to being teachers and what will we want somebody to give us as far as the PD.
I would go to different classrooms and watch. I found out who are the best teachers at the school.
Yes.
And I'm going to sit here, I'm going to watch you to figure out. Because the kids talk and who the stars are. And I would go and I would watch them. But I don't know that other teachers do that. Like that was me.
Right.
Like I was hungry. Young, but yeah, it sounds like some of your young teachers are, but I did have those practicums too. So I knew what I was looking for. I knew what I didn't know. What about feedback, Tara, and maybe people who might, struggle, who didn't quite get it? Like Donn said, maybe the CTE teachers were like, what? Like, I'm trying to build a computer. What does that have to do with me? Was there anything that you did in between the visits to facilitate their growth and understanding?
One of the things that we made sure that they understood was that we were always open to coming in and helping and co-teaching, helping them with the strategy. We would always, open that opportunity up. Donn always opened that opportunity up for the time that he was here. He would say, if you want me to come into your classroom, I certainly am able to do that. And I certainly opened that up to teachers as well. If they were particularly a little bit nervous or anxious about a strategy and they wanted some support, then I certainly was willing to come in there and give them a helping hand. And sometimes I think just knowing that you're willing makes them feel relaxed. They may not ever invite you necessarily, but knowing that you are there. And I got a couple of invites, and Donn, I think, did too. But I think just knowing that you're willing helps them feel safe. So I think that was good. I also, the diversity on the VLL team helped eliminate that, kind of what you're saying, because they had somebody that was a part of their discipline on the VLL team. So they kind of reached out to them more so than, say, to me. And that's who their sounding board was. They normally wanted me to come in if they wanted a shout out in the newsletter, because they knew that I would make sure that it was in the newsletter.
I'd be inviting you constantly.
Yeah, they knew their name would end up in print with me, but they did go to their VLL member. And I really liked it because, that's why, Mr. Roberts wanted the team put together that way, is he wanted them to have a like person on there that taught their subject matter.
What about this year? So first year, you did visible learning literacy, you did teacher clarity. Is there a new book this year that you've chosen?
We are going to complete teacher clarity because we did not finish it last year. We got right there in the middle. So we've done our professional development plan for the year, and our plan is to complete that book because we did not just want to stop in the middle. We talked about the importance of SREB and the study that we started with them, and that wasn't something that we were going to just leave and throw out. Mr. Roberts talked about, and so I think that was important that he led that conversation.
Depth over breadth, right?
Yes.
Let's learn this for real rather than just it's a new year, new book. My last question is choosing the team, picking the right people. So next week, we're going to have on two of your VLL people. We'll have Claire Armstrong and Shalita Greenlee, and they are good. I've already spoken to them. And they said to me, the most important things is getting the right people on the team. So can you just talk about briefly, what did you look for? And what are the tips you would give another leader in terms of creating a learning leadership team of teachers?
I could briefly kind of talk about my thoughts and turn it over to Taria and Donn. I knew it would be important to get teachers across the content. Like, I knew that was going to be extremely important. And we knew we wanted to find some influences within the school, but we also knew we wanted some strong voices too. And I don't know if this, like, we didn't need all yes men. Like, we needed people to really, and we had some very strong personalities, extremely strong personalities. And one of the things that Donn and Taria probably didn't have time to go into, when I would go into the BLL sessions, it was work. It was back and forth. It was agreeing and professionally disagreeing. So having those key people, I think, sped up our process. It really did. And we've had people from the guidance department, every department, every phase of the school, because we want that total buy-in. And we thought that would be a good way to speed up that process.
Influencers, strong voices, diversity of perspectives are three of the big ones. Anything else you want to add, Taria, to who should be on picking the right people?
Continuous learners.
Yeah. Continuous learners. People who ask to go to the PDs, right?
Yes.
Send me. Good. So is there anything about this process or this experience that we haven't spoken about that you think people might wonder about or might be useful for people to think about?
I mean, the big word that comes to me is trust in relationships.
I think so. And I kind of want to piggyback off Taria, because it's the speed of that trust. As soon as we can trust each other and we know that part about having each other's back, that means something in education. And I've been in this profession over 30 years, and we want to make sure we continue that. Like, I'm not always going to be the principal at Westside High School, and my teachers won't always work here at Westside High School. So again, we want this to extend. We're in public education for a reason, and we want that to keep going.
I guess the question then becomes, how do you build trust? What are the key steps to building trust? I don't know. That's not done overnight, right? That's an ongoing experience.
Probably a lot to the it's
okay.
a lot of
altar calls. I believe it. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time. Next week, we're going to have two teachers to hear their version of this and listen to how they perceived this experience and how they grew from it. So thank you all for coming, and we look forward to hearing from them next week. Have a great year at Westside High School.
Hey, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to come before you. We really cherish this opportunity.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.